Hello, and welcome to our podcast, Beyond the Fear. I'm the host, Nicole. Today, we're going to talk about the effect of the domestic environment on women's status during the Renaissance time in Shakespeare's plays. Our guest today is Lavinia. Well, her ghost, actually, and thank you so much for joining us. We'll begin with the crime of Titus killing Lavinia. Lavinia, if you don't mind, can I ask, what is your opinion about the whole crime? Like, do you feel betrayed or frightened of what your father does to you?
I don't know. I don't know how to talk about it, but it does scare me.
It's okay. You're free to talk everything to us here in this podcast. You'll be safe here, I assure you.
Um, okay. I feel guilty for dishonoring my father, and that's why I think I deserve to die. Although I still feel afraid of that incident, I will not blame him for killing me.
I really feel sorry for what you've been suffering from, but personally speaking, I don't think you're responsible for this issue. Actually, we have an expert with us today who might help you out of this depression by using our modern world scientific research results. Hello, Dr. Sapphire.
Hello, Nicole. It is apparent in many cultural, political, and economic development that women have been condemned by inflexible social norms, forced obedience and unjustified violence, both outside and inside the domestic environment. The story of Lavinia has long been discussed throughout time and ages. Sometimes she has been portrayed as a victim, or sometimes as a simple sacrifice in the patriarchal world in the name of honors. First, let's talk about her being raped. Do you agree that if the rapist needs Lavinia's silence, her family need her voice?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, but however, this need is equipped by the way Marcus and Titus repeatedly ignore Lavinia's attempt to tell about the criminals. Because Lavinia is unable to speak or write, both Marcus and Titus gave up asking her questions very soon after the mutilation. This illustrates the fact that the recognition of women as a source of knowledge is underrated in patriarchal society.
Come to think of it, that is true. Any thoughts about this problem, Dr. Sapphire?
Well, for Marcus and Titus, Lavinia cannot be a source of knowledge, and it is truly sad that the woman depends on men's abilities and willingness to read her. Titus is too confident about his own ability to interpret Lavinia's dumb action, in Titus' own words, to actually pay attention to her.
Yeah, I agree with you. But Lavinia does expose the criminals to Titus and Marcus, although she really goes through a long time struggle within her heart. But still, I don't think that helped her to voice her opinions.
Yeah, it doesn't help. When Lavinia finally announced the crime and the criminal, Titus and Marcus completely forgot about her. Instead of trying to comfort her, they ordered her to kneel for the solemn moment of swearing revenge and being more preoccupied with their own honors than hers.
Dr. Sapphire, with all of these ignorant actions around her and male relatives' disregard of Lavinia's ideas, what are your opinions about her status and feeling?
Well, to answer that question, first we need to know more about her living conditions. She has been claimed and rejected by Saturninus, who didn't even bother to ask her opinion at all. And on top of that, her father agreed to this, treating her like a shadow for exchange of reassurance of his loyalty to the empire. In addition to this, the law at that time, according to the law resolution of women's rights, say that once a woman get married, the control of money and her property pass to her husband, which basically means that a woman's life is owned by her father or her husband. Finally, Lavinia's death by the hand of her father, which is an act that is seen as monstrous, inhumane, and inappropriate for Titus as both father and a human. Here is really show us how women are expected to behave and how they are treated as a shadow. Lavinia has been raped, mutilated, and is barely registered with Titus in comparison to the damage that he believes has been done to his own reputation and honors. If a woman could not be held responsible for her own action, could not speak because no one listened and respect her, or could not control her own money and property, and even her life, how could she expect to maintain anything other than a second-class status?
Thank you very much for your explanations, Dr. Sapphire. So, according to the expert, the male relatives in the domestic environment often disregard women's opinions. They don't even ask about women's ideas, and gradually, women's voices are getting weaker and weaker. Women become the appendages or the limbs to the men characters, and women's status becomes very low. Lavinia, you mentioned you've watched some of the romantic shows in our conversation before our podcast begins, like Romeo and Juliet, and you said that you really like Juliet. Don't you feel that your story is somewhat similar to what happened to Juliet? I mean, you're both assigned to a marriage which you don't like, and both of you try to get rid of it. But the thing is, or the key difference is that Juliet escapes from that marriage all by herself, but you're told to run away with your lover, Bassianus, without being asked of your opinions. Does that have something to do with your preference for Juliet?
I didn't mean to disobey the orders of my father and the emperor. I used to think it's just my duty as the daughter of my father and my duty as a subject of the emperor. But after listening to what Dr. Sapphire said, I kind of changed my mind a little bit. There is a ghost friend of mine called Desdemona. You might have heard of her. She has experienced something similar. She told me that her husband was good, but he still killed her anyways. She also thinks that the tragedy was somehow her fault, but now I see there can be something wrong with the man.
Glad to see it. And Desdemona indeed is also an old friend of us. And just as what you said, she's in a similar situation with you. I mean, she is often regarded as the appendages to the male characters in Othello. For example, Desdemona is Brabantio's daughter, the Othello's wife, and tool of Iago to plot against Othello, but she is never herself. She plays the role of the limb of male characters, especially her male family members, which is absurd, because even her father and husband fail to listen to her and respect her. But things have been changed a lot. Compared to what you experienced, today in our modern society, women's status has been improved a lot. But still, there are huge gaps between male and female statuses. Gender inequalities still exist, and much of them come from a closed environment, for example, a domestic environment, a family. To further eliminate gender inequalities, we need to break up these environments. And one of the possible ways is to use social media. The power of the internet could break up the closed space and let more women realize their situation and fight for the rights that they deserve. Thank you for coming today. This is Beyond the Fear. I'm the host, Nicole. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Have a wonderful day.